Hello, guys, and welcome to episode 4 of the Whips Nation podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and our guest today is Whipsnakes assistant coach and Hill School head coach, Mike Murphy. Coach Murphy talks about coaching at the Hill School, his past coaching experience at the collegiate level, and even giving us an inside look into some things he likes to do when building a winning culture. It's gonna be a good one, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. 3, 2, 1. All right, we're live. Hey, welcome everybody. We got Coach Mike Murphy from the Whipsnakes here. How you doing, Mike?
I'm glad, Alex. It's great to join you. As I said when we were talking earlier, I've had a chance to watch 2 of the 3 already, and I love what you're doing.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate your feedback, especially coming from you. For those of you who don't know, I asked Mike to hop on a quick Zoom call with me earlier before my own season coaching lacrosse, and he gave me a bunch of tips, drills to run for really improving our defense. And I couldn't think of anybody better to have than Mike, obviously, being that he's, the defensive mastermind behind our Whipsnakes defense, which is, no sleeper in the PLL, as we're all familiar with.
Well, it helps. We got some pretty good players too, so they make my job really easy.
So, me being a younger coach and you being way more experienced, what's one thing that you wish you had known when you started?
That's very nice of you to say experienced and not older.
I choose my words carefully on here, Mike.
I think as a younger coach, I probably wish that as a more of a veteran coach and having, the ups and downs of for the better part of 25 years of doing this, I think you learn patience as you go. I think sometimes, as a younger coach, you have all this energy and knowledge, and sometimes you got to coach your kids where they are, not necessarily where you are. And sometimes that can be the hardest thing to do. You still want to hold them accountable, and you still want to teach them to a high level. But, sometimes it's if you can't do geometry, getting to calculus can be relatively difficult. And so
Sure.
I wish I would have learned at a time to maybe be more present to where the boys were, when my first, stint at Merrimack College, back in the summer of 1997, when I had just graduated from New Hampshire. I think that was a thing, was like, coming from the Division I into Division II, sometimes, I'm probably talking too fast, or, not coaching at that point, the young men, maybe the way they needed to be coached, because I needed to be more patient and have a little bit more understanding of where they are at that point in their college careers.
So, when you say that and you're coaching your team and you see that some athletes are progressing, much quicker than others, how do you kind of, pull the guys aside and help the ones who need help while also still challenging, the ones who are clearly excelling quicker?
Well, I think, what we did when you kind of move on, and when I was a head coach at Colgate, I would give, whether it was, and Mike Abbott, who's now the offensive coordinator at Penn and the associate head coach, Mike was with me that whole time. But we were fortunate to have, 3 different defensive coordinators. Joe Starsia started with us, then Stephen Toomey was the middle, and then Judd Hall finished off with us. And those guys were so bright that I gave them, or I was able to give them a lot of autonomy in terms of they would spend 90% of their time with the top half of our roster, where I would spend 90% of my time with the bottom half of the roster, to allow those kids and young men to feel like they were being evaluated and pushed to get to I guess I'll just put it this way, to get to the other side of the field. And so if you were like the younger guys, it was like, well, at least the head coach is taking stock of what I'm doing as I'm improving.
Right.
And so when we would sit in a coaches meeting, let's just say on a Tuesday morning after a Monday practice, I could sit down with the coaching staff and say, hey, Alex was doing a really good job in our drills. What do you think of, can he get in with the second line, or can he be the fourth pole or the fourth attackman, or maybe we stick him in a man down situation to get him more reps. And I think that's the way we tried to do it when I was at Colgate. At West Point, it was a little different because we just had a lot more guys.
Right.
And I think that you sometimes, especially at that level, the cream has to rise to the top, and you have to spend your time with those guys, and those other guys need to kind of work on their own stuff on their own. And that can be the difficult part of, again, being part of a really good team if there's a gap in skill level. And I think you and I deal with that probably right now more so at the high school level, because you may have a freshman who's really talented, and he's probably too talented to be with all the other freshmen, but he's not yet talented enough to be in the top group with the varsity. And so how do you develop that young guy? And to be honest with you, we try to put those guys, you kind of throw them in the deep end of the pool, but you're there with the life preserver when he needs it. And I just think that kids will a lot of times young players will rise to the expectation of the coaches. You just got to give them the opportunity, to succeed. One of the things that again, I really learned as I've turned from the college hat to the high school hat is really teaching the kids it's okay to fail, because failure is the first part of success. And that's really hard for a young person because they don't want to fail.
Right.
It's like, if your stick needs to be in your left hand, put it in your left hand. I don't care if you drop the ball or you miss the pass, because on the third rep, you may catch it on the fourth one, and then you catch it on the fifth one, and then it becomes, habitual for you.
Right.
And so that's what we try to talk, that's how we continue to work with the younger guys. I just think it's important that you give those guys opportunities as best you can within the context and the constructs of your practice.
And I think there's a fine line that you kind of have to walk, because there's a huge difference in learning from failure and then learning to fail. Because if all you do is fail, it's hard to kind of like dig yourself out of that hole and find success. So
exactly.
So do you do anything like culture-wise to kind of instill like self-accountability to your players to, get better outside of practice? Because I mean, for high school practice, we only have them, for 2 hours a day, and there's a lot of other things going on. Do you guys do any sort of like self-accountability for them working on their skills outside of practice?
Yeah, and I think it's, it's different. It's different for you than it is for me, because I live at a boarding school. Yeah. And so guys are here, and so there's not that, 20 minutes in the car ride home, or 5 minutes in the car ride home, or, man, I got to get back in the car, or mom's going to bring me to the field. Yeah. For the field is a hop, skip, and a jump from the dormitories. Right. And so for our guys, and I used to have this conversation with the college guys as well, is, a college lacrosse coach only has his team for 20 hours, and so you as a player need to find the fine line of what's too much, but I also have to find time outside of those 20 hours to work on my game. Because if Matt Dunn is this, and he's first on the depth chart, and he's doing those 20 hours, and he's first, and Mike Murphy is sixth on the depth chart, well, I got to find time. Well, how do I close that gap? Right, exactly. If it's going to be a practice for those 20 hours. I need to find the time to get my game better, watching film, getting in the weight room, all those kind of different things. And that's what I appreciate about working at a boarding school, is much more of a collegial environment here than say at a regular, like a public school or a day school where the kids are going, home. And so like even today, like I left practice to come home, eat, and get ready to chat with you. And there's a handful of my guys still on the field throwing the ball around, and there's still guys, like the younger guys are shooting. And so you asked about building a culture, and we've built that, it's not like I took over a program from scratch. The Hill has historically been a pretty good program. Fallen on a little bit of hard times, in terms of where we are now and moving forward, but we still get really good players. Like we're setting, we got 3 guys going to play Division 1 guy going to play in Division 2. We have arguably the #1 poll in the country in the junior class, who we're sending to Maryland, after the 22 season. And so it's easy to instill a culture when your best players are your hardest workers. When Capri and Carter Straub and Andrew Kiraleeson are on the field, then those younger guys are going, man, our captains are on the field, and Will Shaller's at practice, 15 minutes before the whistle blows, and guys are like, well, I want to be that guy. Then it's easy to say, well, if you want to be that guy, well, you got to put in the time that guy puts in. And so there are three key words that we use in our program, and then 1 3-word phrase that we use. And we talk about being accountable, committed, and loyal. Accountable is doing your job, whatever that may be. If you're Will Shaller and you're the best player on the field, then you need to be the best player on the field. That's your job. If you're, Cole Thomas, who is a freshman, who's just new to our team, then your job is to get better every single day and be a guy that's doing the right thing. And not only accountable on the field, but accountable in the classroom, accountable in our community, the different things that college guys talk to their college players about, but even as high school coaches, we need to talk to our kids about it. And then, the commitment piece to it is, I think, more of being emotionally, physically, and I'm drawing a blank, and mentally invested in what we're doing. And so when we're at practice, you are at practice, you are present, and you are invested in all that we're doing. If you're going to be a member of our team, well, you're invested in doing things the way that the Hill Boys Lacrosse team is striving to be, the best version of ourselves. And then the loyalty piece is sacrificing, the me for the we. And that's what we ask of our guys. And I talk to our team all the time about, like, you don't score, we score. And I will tell you, we filmed a scrimmage, our first inter-squad scrimmage, and I brought the team in and I showed them a clip of the first goal of the game that we scored. And there's like 6 individual guys walking to their spots. We never celebrated the goal. I spent more time on that clip than I did on offense or defense or any of the special teams, because it was like, listen, guys, scoring goals is a hard thing to do. Let's celebrate each other. And whether it's Corey or it's Will or it's Carter, when that ball goes in the net, I want to see 6 guys celebrating like it was the first thing that we've ever done. And it should be that way after every other goal.
And after big saves, defensive stops,
and even when you give up a goal, I want to see 7 defenders in talking about what went wrong. And I think that shows the culture of, sacrificing the me for the we, and being accountable to your teammates, where if you're in that huddle, you're like, man, I missed a 2 slide, I got to be better in that situation. Then your teammates are going to hold you accountable, but you're going to hold yourself accountable to your teammates as well. And then the 3-word phrase that we use around here is, your actions express your priorities. So again, if you want to be a better player, well, what actions are showing that you want to be a better player? You may tell me you want to be a better player, but you're never on the wall. You're never asking for the bucket of balls. Again, we're very fortunate. We have an indoor facility. And in our indoor facility, in the corner of the gym, and then they have access to a bucket. There's a full bucket of balls in that closet every day. So you can't tell me that you don't have the ability to do it. You may not have the time to do it.
Right.
That's where I say to our guys, I don't need you to be in the gym for 45 minutes. But if you're in the gym for 10 minutes, 4 different days, well, there's 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Your week. And if you're going, classes for us right now are done at 3:00. Well, practice doesn't start till 3:45. If you have your last hour of class free, what better thing is to put your, and I think back to when I first started playing, I loved, and I'm going to date myself, but putting my headphones on and having my Walkman in my pocket or my
That's
MP3
right.
player, and just hitting the wall. And again, I picked the game up late. I didn't start playing lacrosse until I was a freshman in high school. Some of my boys right now have been playing since they were my son's age, in
Right.
college. And so, I look at my son right now, his stick skills are so much better than mine were when I first picked up the game. It was like, as a defenseman, it was like peas on a knife. But that's where, again, your actions are going to express your priorities. And again, if you think about, values and, team in buzzwords, I have a friend of mine who runs the program, a guy named Eric Kapitulik, who's a Naval Academy graduate and was a force recon Marine.
Oh, wow.
And Eric talks about, like, everybody has these huge manifestos on their team. And he's like, when the bullets start flying, can your guys recite that manifesto? And that's why when we talk about our culture at our team, it boils down to 6 words: accountable, committed, and loyal, and actions express priorities. I think our guys are pretty smart that they can remember those 6 things when the proverbial bullets start flying.
I mean, I think that's all excellent stuff. For the younger guys listening to this, everything Coach Murphy's saying right now is 100% the truth. You get in what you get out, and just because if Mike and I are at the same practice and practice is 2 hours, what I do for 2 hours and what Mike can do for 2 hours might be different things. You want to do the best you could possibly do for those 2 hours to get the best out of it. And outside of practice, you're 100% right with that too. If you have 20 minutes, 30 minutes free, don't think of it as, it's only going to be 20 minutes. Is it even worth it? Do that 20 minutes every single day and it adds up. And then when it adds up, it becomes habitual, and you'll go out of your way and you'll find more time, to hit the wall, to have a catch with some teammates before practice. No, I think that's awesome stuff. Now, Mike, who are 3 of your most influential people, in your life that help you out with coaching, your career, all that?
Mike Caravana, who I worked for at Edison, Joe Albarisi, who I worked for at West Point, and Jim Fritz, who actually gave me my first real coaching job at Pfeiffer University. And Coach Fritz is out of coaching right now, but I probably talk to Coach Fritz once a week, twice, a week or so. He's just a guy that, it's just really easy to talk to. And he was a guy that gave me my first real opportunity. And I thought, I have to thank Coach, because at a time where, it got to Pfeiffer and he basically handed me the keys to the defense and said, coach him the way you want. I'm not gonna micromanage you. I need you to do this. And we had some really good players. Matt LeBlanc was our goalie, and he was a phenomenal goalie. Tim Kirk, Kevin Ryder were a couple of our, John Perez, a couple of our defenders. And we had a pretty good team. We ended up winning the Deep South Conference Championship that year. And it was before they had automatic qualifiers to the Division II. But Coach just gave me the ability to learn and fail on my own, and learn, kind of scramble and figure things out. And he's just been such a great resource to talk to. Sometimes outside of coaching, I think one of the things that I really am appreciative of those 3 gentlemen, and I could probably give you 10. You only wanted 3.
Right. Yeah.
The first 3 guys that come to mind. As I think about the evolution of my career, Coach Caravana is a guy that always challenged me to think a play ahead. He used to say guys all the time, but he also used to, Dennis Stewart, God rest his soul, was the former longtime assistant at Denison. And when Dennis left to go to be the assistant at Ohio State, I had been working lacrosse academy camps for a couple of years, and those were the camps that Mike Caravana ran and different things. And as soon as Dennis was leaving, Mike had one call and he's like, Murph, this is the job. This is your job. What you got to do is you got to teach in the physical education department, and you got to coach football as well.
Wow.
And so it was pretty much like a rubber stamp, but I had to interview with the football coach, and it was going to happen no matter what, because Coach C was calling the shots. But in those 2 years on his staff, I just, again, was continue to able to grow and learn and get challenged by a guy who is one of the greatest coaches in Division III, if not in college lacrosse. Wow. You know, he's been able to do at Denison, I think is just unbelievable. And, you know, Coach was a 4-time All-American at Virginia, so he knows the game. He's forgotten, you know, he's forgotten more about the game than I know. Mm-hmm. And I talked to him the other day on the phone, and he was asking me questions about our draft coming up and all these different things. And he continues to challenge me to kind of think outside the box, you know. And then kind of funny story is when Jason Miller left to become the head assistant at UMass, that the Army job opened up. And so I interviewed and stuff like that. And Alex, I was really nervous. So Coach Emmer, who at the time was the coach at West Point, I interviewed on a Friday. Coach Emmer, you know, called me back on the Sunday and offered me the job. I was terrified to go into Coach Caravana's office and tell him that I was thinking about leaving. Wow. And you want to talk about a guy who is one of the greatest mentors I've ever had outside of my dad and my mom. I sat across from Coach's desk, and I was nervous as all get out. And I told him how it went. And Coach is this little Italian guy from Long Island, and his heart's as big as his body. He stood up, snatched me out of the chair, gave me a big hug, and goes, "If you want to do this for a profession, you got to go." Because again, it was going to coach at West Point for Jack Emmer, who at the time was the all-time leading wins leader in Division I lacrosse, all these different things, West Point Division I, all those different, you know, those different variables that are part of it. And to think like, you know, he's kind of kicking me out the door, but kicking me out the door for a good reason. Right. And then 2 years with Coach Emmer, and then 6 more with Coach Alberici, you know, I just think allowed me to continue to become a better coach, because they all, and with Coach Fritz, they all put pressure on me to learn on my own, but to learn through them as well. So it wasn't doing it by myself. Right. I had great mentorship, but what they were great guides for me. They weren't pushing me anywhere. They were guiding me towards things, and they were helping me and mentoring me in certain ways. Like I remember, you know, we had a lot of success at 2 NCAA tournaments with Coach Emmer, and then same thing with Coach Alberici and you know, you see the trajectory that Army's been on, you know, since been there. But while I was there, I mean, you get to kind of ride those coattails, and Coach Al, you know, is one of the best in the business, you know, at the Division I level, and got offered a bunch of different opportunities to take other jobs. But Coach was always good in the mentorship of looking at the job as the head coach. And some jobs aren't as cracked up to be what you think they are. And I remember my dad said this to me as well. He's like, don't just take a job because it's a head job, because your assistant job might be better than that head job. And so that's why, you know, it took me a long time, you know, to decide to leave West Point and to take on the reins at Colgate when we did in 2011 and the 2012 season. But I wouldn't have been able to do the things that we were able to do at Colgate without the guidance and the mentorship of, you know, those 3 individuals, but, you know, guys like John Dodd, who I worked for at Wingate, you know, my friends in the coaching business, that when you're sitting on the sidelines at recruiting events, or you're sitting in a bar and you're, you know, drawing up plays on a napkin, you just talk about like life, liberty, and kind of the pursuit of, you know, happiness on the lacrosse field. You know, there's a lot of guys, you know, Graham Nemi's another one that comes to mind. Graham is, he's the athletic director and assistant athletic director and the boys lacrosse coach at Fairfield Prep. You know, funny story that I bring back to that is when Jason left, Coach Emmer interviewed Graham and myself. Really? Graham took the Yale job, and Graham had just had a better resume than I did. Mm-hmm. Graham took Andy Shea's offer, which allowed me to take the West Point offer. And Graham always reminded me, goes, man, you're lucky I took that Yale job. You'd still be in Ohio. But it's just, again, guys like that, you know, your peers and your contemporaries, but also those mentors, that I think that's where our sport is just, I think, so different than the other sports, is guys are all, like you brought up the story about, you know, the call that you made to me about just doing a couple drills.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer for me, because somebody did that for me. So it's my responsibility, you know, as we started our relationship, you know, back in 2019 with this Whipsnakes, you know, and then when you called and needed it, it was like, I will make time for this call, because, you know, I want to be able to give back to a good young coach as he's trying to, you know, make his team better, because at some point somebody did it for me. And so it's my job to pay it back.
No, I really appreciate that. Mike, this podcast has been fantastic, and it's gone by quicker than any other podcast I've done. We have time for one more sort of question. I'm gonna ask you to basically do like a mock speech. Okay, so picture this. It's a 9-8 game. Okay, your team's down, the other team has the ball, and there's about 30 seconds left. Give us your best 30-second hype speech for the defense to lock it down for the last 30 seconds and win the game.
We've called timeout.
Yep.
Got the boys in the huddle. All right, well, I'm going to put our two best poles. We're going to double team the ball, you know, and so fellas, here's what we got to do. We've got our lefty here, you know, so let's make sure that we force him into the double team. Ball gets on the ground. We need to get it down to the attack as quickly as we can. We'll call timeout. We'll drop our play. So Alex, let's just say that play happened. And all I would say to the boys,
yeah.
Let's just go play. Just go make a play. Go do what you guys are capable of doing. Don't try to be superhuman. Just go make a play. And so now the next thing with our offensive guys is let's drop the play. Like, who's our go-to guy? Let's set up a play for him. If we got to run some pick action for him or give him the ball coming out of the timeout, you know, very similar situation that you talk about. Like, I think back to, you know, I guess it was the 2012 season. It's a tie ball game. Peter Baum's got 8 seconds left and we're at Bucknell.
Wow.
And Pete, pick up the ball, run as fast as you can. You're the best athlete on the field, and just do what you do. And when, you know, my point to the boys in the huddle would just allow them to try to be what they are. Don't try to be anything that you're not. Go out there and make a play. Don't be afraid to fail.
Woo. I'm ready to make a play, Coach. Well, Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. Where can people find you on your socials?
So Twitter, it's at LaxCoachMike.
Okay.
And then on Instagram, it's at LaxCoachMurph. Those are my two Instagram. I don't do Facebook. I leave that up to my wife. She does the best job of keeping our family in tune to what we're doing around here. But you know, those are my two kind of social media. You know, those are the follows, and then you can also follow our Hill Boys Lacrosse at Hill B Lacrosse. So HILLBLACROSSE. So if you want to follow the Hill Boys Lacrosse team, you can give them a follow as well. But this has been great, Alex. I appreciate it. You know, we're very much appreciative of our Whips Nation fans. You know, we support the stickers on water bottles and helmets. My little guy and my little girl, they got their Whips Nation stickers on their water bottles and everything else around here.
Love it. Well, thank you again so much, Mike. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Alex. Take care.
Thank you, you too. If you made it here to the end of the video, go ahead and comment down below your favorite part of the interview, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please go hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe for more Whipsnakes content.